Canada has revoked its emergency measures, having used them to crush dissent, but certain financial restrictions will be in place permanently. Hello there, you 5 million awakening wonders. I know it can be hard to be in this world sometimes. I feel your suffering. We are in this together. We will continue to improve together in spite of evident creeping tyranny across the globe. New convoys are springing up to protest while emergency measures are being slipped into law. And today we want to talk about what's happening in Canada post-convoy. Because while Trudeau has been pressured into revoking the emergency measures first proposed, there are slippery little financial movements happening that bring us closer to a kind of technocratic tyranny. We're going to be investigating that in today's video. I want you to know that if you're in the UK, you can come and see me live in March, coming up soon. I'm going to be in Carlisle, Scarborough, Sheffield, Newcastle's coming up soon, Hull. I was in Manchester last week. That's why my voice sounds a bit funny. If you listen, you can hear I sound a little bit cooler, actually. It's an improvement. So if you want to come and see me, there's a link in the description. Come and get your tickets to see me live. You'll have a fantastic time, I promise you. Now let's get into it. Canada's 3-week-old freedom convoy is nearly over. Every trucker blockade in Canada has been cleared. The mostly peaceful protests against the Liberal government's vaccine mandate for truckers are being broken up by law enforcement. Under Mr. Trudeau's decree, police had the authority to push back crowds on foot or with horses, use pepper spray, enter trucks and other vehicles by whatever means necessary and make arrests en masse. That's what they did. So it's just worth checking in there. Push back crowds, use pepper spray, enter trucks and other vehicles, make arrests en masse. Hold that image. In December 2020, Mr. Trudeau chided India for its police response to farmers' blockades of Delhi. Let me remind you, he said, Canada will always be there to defend the right of peaceful protests. Oh, okay then. Whether or not there are extremist elements to a protest, or indeed any large group of human beings, you can see why it's favourable to amplify that narrative if you want to oppose and shut down any form of dissent. And that's exactly what's happened here. Now let's get into the more scary aspect of this story. Even though the emergency measures have been revoked because they've done their job, that's like revoking punching you in the face because you're unconscious now. I can revoke punching you in the face. Hello? It's been revoked. But certain financial restrictions are set to remain for a lot longer. And there's an eerie precedent that involves WikiLeaks, Assange and all that stuff that you're going to love hearing about. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has revoked the emergency powers he invoked over just a week ago, saying, "We're ready to confirm that the situation is no longer an emergency." Have you noticed how often we're talking on our videos about the use of language? This is terror now. This is misinformation. This is an emergency. Language is being heavily weaponized by the state. Canada's Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, wants to make permanent the invasive financial surveillance system introduced as part of the Emergency Act to crush the civil liberties protest. If your name is Chrystia Freeland, don't make your primary function in life to surveil people's private financial affairs. Freeland had announced the initial powers earlier this week to freeze the bank accounts of those who support the protests. This order covers both personal and corporate accounts. What I find offensive about that is it's happening under the auspices of liberal democracy. Okay, we're just going to be freezing your bank account. We're just going to be asking you never to leave the house again. We're just going to be pepper spraying you in the eyes. How about this? Hey guys, we're thinking it would really help us with these illegal occupations if we had certain measures like to be able to freeze bank accounts. So we're putting it to the vote. Would you like that? Because it's your country, you pay us. Right? They're not doing that, are they? They're just putting those measures in place. That isn't Chrystia Freeland. That's dark crystally tyranny land.
In terms of the financial instruments which our government is using right now.
If I nod at you like this, perhaps you won't notice what we're proposing belongs to the last century in terms of centralized tyranny.
To act against these illegal blockades and illegal occupation, we reviewed very, very carefully the tools at the disposal of the federal government.
Ah, good old tools. A tool and a weapon, it depends what you do with it, isn't it? This is a tool. What are you going to do with it?
And we used all the tools that we had.
What are these tools? Why are you saying these things are tools? Just some tools. What are these tools? Tools are You go do as you're fucking told for the rest of your life, or else we're nicking your money. I don't remember agreeing to that. Yeah, we're the government. Remember when they're campaigning and it's like Trudeau, hey, I got nice hair, everyone's included, which, by the way, I totally agree with. Include everybody, include everyone. Yeah. Hey, guess what? If you fuck with us, we're going to use the old tools. Oh, what tools? These tools!
Prior to the invocation of the Emergencies Act, and we determined that we needed some additional tools.
We determined we needed additional tools. That's describing what a dictatorship is. We determined we needed additional tools. What's democracy? Who's we? What do you mean by determined?
Now, some of those tools, we will be putting forward measures to put those tools permanently in place.
Permanently. We're just permanently putting this in place.
The authorities of FinTrack, I believe, do need to be expanded to cover crowdsourcing platforms.
Because I suppose if you look at it, technology can be used in a multitude of ways. We are using it right now to communicate ideas that don't get discussed in the mainstream media, to offer critiques of power that are challenging to what I consider to be the misuse of authority and escalation of measures that are external to democratic processes we've been taught to understand it and how it's presented to us. And like, of course, new technology can be used to bring awareness to ideas, to fundraise, to create relationships. Tools can be used for good, but tools can also be used for bad. And I feel like what they're recognising is, bloody hell, this trucker movement, that escalated fast, and they can fund it using crowd platforms and they can communicate using social media. Oh no, all of our tools of surveillance and oppression are being used to create power for the people, which, by the way, that's what democracy is meant to mean. Populism isn't a shameful thing. Populism means you are in charge of your life. And what they're doing is, oh no, you jolly well don't. This is where the old tools come in handy. Tools.
And payment platform and their payment providers.
Can you see the utility and plasticity of technology in this discourse emerging when technology can be used to create digital ID and vaccine passports, systems of monitoring and surveillance? Technology good, 2 thumbs up. When technology is getting used to empower people, to get people together, to create new narratives, to fund opposition to the government, to prevent what I would consider to be comparable to a kind of rolling tyranny, technology bad, 2 thumbs down for technology now.
That is something that we need to do and we will do, and that needs to be in place permanently.
If you're Canadian, they've just changed your country forever. They've just gone, we can permanently now, when we decide, when we need to, using our tools, shut down your bank account. So all they have to do, you've seen now what the method is with the trucker protest. This trucker protest, it ain't good. What do we need to do? Oh, we've got these measures permanent forever. We're going to shut down the bank account of whoever we want. So all they have to do in the future is label anyone they want as being a threat to the ideals that they're setting out. And then the measures are there, ready and waiting. They've just armed themselves.
Some of these other tools, like the sharing of information between law enforcement and financial services, and the requirement of financial services to be reviewing their accounts proactively.
Now we know what the new wave of tyranny looks like. It looks like people with nice haircuts and sort of gently sort of bobbing forward in a chair. Okay, so we're just going to be freezing your bank accounts permanently. There's nothing to worry about. And Justin Trudeau condemning protests in India. We'll always be supportive of protest in our country. Well, we can all say that. It's very easy to say that. But when that is concomitant to the closure and freezing of bank accounts, shutting down crowdfunding, determining whether or not a protest is malign and judging it as such in order to foreclose it, that is literally the building blocks of tyranny. That's what it would look like now. We're sort of idiots, aren't we? We think unless they've got the moustaches, they can't be tyrants, because we all remember what it was last time round. I'm serious. That's the misuse of power. And if you can't see that because you really like Justin Trudeau's hair, then you've got to start watching different TV channels.
These are extraordinary measures that we absolutely believe are necessary in the current circumstances.
Oh, it's all right. As long as you absolutely believe it's necessary. I thought you were just doing it for a laugh. We don't really believe it's necessary. Oh, you believe it. That's fine. Because, I suppose then we'd only have to question this if we, didn't trust you.
That are having an impact. And let me also point out, having a peaceful impact.
Yeah, it is peaceful if everyone sits bolt upright in a cell all day and nobody moves or does anything and all our bank accounts are frozen. See how peaceful they are in their tiny little cells with that thing in the back of their head, all in the formaldehyde pink soap stuff that Neo was in The Matrix. Ah, so peaceful, so free, so liberal, so Canada.
And the other aspect of the financial tools that I would point to as being really effective and important is being clear that insurance on trucks that participate in these illegal occupations and blockades will be suspended.
All right, we're shutting you down from every angle. So those of you that have ever considered that there are conspiracies between the government and financial industry and that insurance is some kind of scam and that the government just looks for ways to create power and control you, telling you all the time you're free to do as we tell you, you're free to do as we tell you, to quote the late, great Bill Hicks. Now you have a further piece of evidence. They shut down the insurance of the trucks. They shut down the funding of the protesters. They closed down the bank accounts of people that support it. That may be many things, but what it is not is liberal democracy.
We didn't have those tools.
Stop saying tools.
I don't believe that those tools should be part of the toolbox.
All right, we get a metaphor. Good old tools. We just want to hammer home these points and chisel away your freedom and saw away the Constitution and then chainsaw away your spirit and your soul, then weld you shut in a dystopia. Well, that sounded okay. She used a lot of tools.
Of a government in ordinary times, but they are necessary in these extraordinary circumstances.
Now we've got an article from Pulitzer Prize winner and well-known right-wing fascist Glenn Greenwald. And I'm being sarcastic when I say stuff like that. I know Jacobin is left, and it's a joke. I'm from England. The decade-long repression of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks standing alone demonstrates how grave neoliberal attacks on dissent have become. While the Obama DOJ Under-Attorney General Eric Holder failed to find evidence of criminality after convening a years-long grand jury investigation, the then chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Senator Joseph Lieberman, succeeded in pressuring financial service companies such as MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, and Bank of America to terminate WikiLeaks accounts and thus banish them from the financial system, choking off their ability to receive funds from supporters or pay their bills. You might think that this is a kind of unprecedented tyranny, but it isn't. There is a precedent, and look at where it comes from. It will chill you to your bones. Lieberman and his neocon allies also pressured Amazon to remove WikiLeaks from its hosting services, causing the whistleblower group to be temporarily offline. All of that succeeded in crippling WikiLeaks' ability to operate despite being charged with no crime. Indeed, as the DOJ admitted, it could not prove that the group committed any crimes. We can't prove you've done any crimes, but we're going to just do all of the things that we would do if we had proved you'd done some crimes, including putting Julian Assange in prison, apparently forever. Those tactics pioneered against WikiLeaks, excluding dissenters from the financial system. Again, do you see how that's comparable to some of the mandate conversation, the legitimizing of exclusion? You're not allowed in the financial system. You're not allowed in the social systems. Coercing tech companies to deny them internet access without a whiff of due process have now become standard weapons. Trudeau's government seizes and freezes bank accounts with no judicial process. Seizes and freezes bank accounts with no judicial process. That's Trudeau. How much largesse and goodwill has this geezer's haircut got him that you can start freezing and seizing bank accounts? The charity fundraising site GoFundMe first blocked the millions of dollars raised for the truckers and announced it would redirect those funds to other charities. Oh, thanks. Then refunded the donations when people pointed out, rightly, that their original plan amounted to a form of stealing. They just had a conversation with someone in the government going, oh, we'll just redirect it to other charities. You can't do that. That's not freedom. You can't just say that the people that you don't agree with are fascists and then behave fascistically. When an alternative fundraising site, Give, Send, Go, raised millions more for the truckers, Canadian courts blocked its distribution. They're like whack-a-moling their way through freedom. Oh, freedom's reared its head again. Get the tools! Get the tools! We're going to need a couple of tools, a bit of freedom. What is most notable, though, is that this alleged criminality is not adjudicated through judicial proceedings. No judicial proceedings. Forget democracy, forget justice. These are like literal pillars that prevent tyranny. Right, how are we not going to have tyranny? Well, I suppose you could have it that people can kick people out of government and you can't introduce measures without the consent of people. Right, get out of the way then. Also, what else? Well, you could have judges and juries and people hearing both sides of a story. Yeah, get rid of that. So you can see how the culture and the political landscape start to co-align and create sort of templates and moods and atmospheres of guilty until proven innocent, of as long as things look right and they're saying the right type of words, then you can shut people down. And if people don't look right and they don't, it's a bizarre inversion of the classical prejudice and bigotry that I prayed that we had left behind and moved beyond. Without the accompanying protections of judges, juries, rules of evidence and requirements of due process, but simply by decree. When financial service companies choked WikiLeaks back in 2010, they justified it by pointing to the government's claim that the group was engaged in crimes and therefore in violation of the rules of the platforms. And now the Canadian truckers have been magically transformed into criminals without the inconvenience of a trial. So all you have to do if you don't like what someone's saying is assure that they are regarded as criminals, and then what they are saying is devoid and negated, diluted, condemned, removed. So you can see that that's an important piece. Oh no, there would have to be a trial to prove that they were criminals. Or we could just say they're criminals, shut it all down, move on, with the compliance of a media that just bombards you and amplifies that message. Oh yeah, that would also work, and it's quicker. Last June, PayPal announced a new partnership with the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, whereby the liberal activist group would identify individuals and groups whose ideology is, in the eyes of the ADL, extremist. This would enable not only PayPal, but financial services companies around the world to then terminate their accounts and exclude them from the financial system. Because of their gigantic network effects and economies of scale, there is no viable alternative when the whole industry works together to deny you access. Kicking people off social media deprives them of the right to speak in our increasingly online world. Locking them out of the financial economy is worse. It deprives them of the right to make a living. We have seen how cancel culture can obliterate one's ability to earn an income, but now the cancelled may find themselves without a way to pay for goods and services. Previously cancelled employees who would never again have the opportunity to work for a Fortune 500 company at least have the option to go into business for themselves. But if they cannot purchase equipment, pay employees or receive payments from clients and customers, that door closes on them too. So, again, with the trucker protests and with the subsequent measures, we have to open our minds wide enough to include the possibility that these measures might find application in subsequent protests or in subsequent systems of opposition. We have to be aware that once a government has that degree of control, it rarely yields it. We have to observe that we are living in a unique time, that whatever you think about the pandemic, it is being used to increase power and control in important ways that may never again be undone. This is an important time for you and for me to stay wide awake and watch. And what we're going to need to do is come together, overlook superficial, cultural, political, religious, ideological differences in order to stand firm, strong, and demand that ordinary people have access to the means of power. This means we have the right and indeed the necessity to disagree with each other. That means that there has to be conflict. Because if you're going like, oh, good, cancel that person, get rid of them, it's going to be you. But here comes the chopper. The blade comes ever closer. Be very, very careful about who you allow yourself to disagree with. Be very careful about which judgments and condemnation you fall into line with, because I think these systems are coalescing and working in unison to create an ever-encroaching technocratic dictatorship that, as the conspiracy theorists always told us, will become a centralized global government. So therefore, I suppose we should be considering all the time localized power, new forms of confederacy, the demand for democracy, the refusal to accept some of these measures that are being brought in. But that's just what I think. What are you thinking? Let me know in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, pass this stuff around. You need to be involved in this conversation with us. It's a very, very important time, in my opinion. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one or this one. Come and see me live on tour. There's a link in the description. Sign up to my mailing list if you want to. But most of all, by God, stay free.